Hey everybody, and welcome to the fifth week of our sensation and perception course. I hope you feel like you've learned a lot so far. We are entering into the final stretch. We're getting ready for the final exam, which is just our fourth exam. It's not cumulative, and so these last four chapters are going to be pretty much all that we're going to talk about for the rest of our short semester. But before I talk any about those things, I want to talk a little bit about the exam grades and grades so far. If you go on Plato and you look at your grades, that should give you a pretty current idea of where you stand in the class right this second. There are some people that have missing grades, and maybe I haven't assigned a 0 to those yet. So if you have submitted all of your assignments, all of that stuff should be graded except for the research paper number 3, which I am in the process of grading if you don't have that up yet. And so that way, I just want you to get as good an idea as possible of where you stand before we go into the final, so that way there's no real surprises by the time we get there. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about exam number 3. Exam number 3 was good. It was better than exam number 1, and it was about the same as exam number 2. And so I felt like people did pretty good on the multiple choice, and a lot of people did really well on the short answer. When people didn't do well on the short answer, I've noticed kind of a trend, and usually when points are taken off, it's for two different reasons. It's much more rare for someone to get points taken off because they had an incorrect answer. Usually it is one of two things. One is that some of these questions are multiple parts, so it'll be like, define so-and-so, give an example of it. And people will do a good job defining it, but won't do the second part. They won't explain using an example. So just be sure that whenever you're filling out the short answer, that you are making sure that you have answered all. If it has a question mark behind it that you've answered, you provide an answer for it. So that way you don't get points taken off for having an incomplete answer. So that's one thing. The other thing is that I've noticed some people, when they answer something, seem like they're answering a different question. And so just be sure whenever, after you have written your response, look at it, look at the question, and make sure that your response answers that particular question. I think probably what happens, at least this is what I've done in the past whenever I was a student, is that I would go through and I would see an answer, I would see a question, I would maybe look at my notes, look at the textbook, learn more about it, and then write the answer to that without looking back at the question. Make sure that I'm answering that specific question. I might be writing about what I just learned about or what I remembered, but maybe didn't address the question completely. So be sure to do those two things. So after you've written your answer, go back, look at the question to make sure that it is the question that you are supposed to be answering, but also that you're answering all parts of it. Those are the two main things that I've noticed that people get points counted off for. So exam number 4 is going to be the exact same format, multiple choice, short answer, and it's not going to be cumulative. I plan on having that posted within the next couple of days, actually. So even though it is going to be due, 2 weeks from now, I will have that posted for you so that you can check it out and do it early if you want to, because I know that some people are planning on taking a little bit of a vacation before fall semester, so that way you don't have to worry too much about that. Okay, so just to recap the week 4 materials, we talked a lot about the sense of hearing. So we talked a lot about how we hear things, what we hear, how we know where things are around us. So just a very quick kind of run through of the chapter discussions. This discussion was really easy, and I noticed a lot of people seem to be kind of interested and bemused by it a little bit. That basically you are doing this hearing test. It works best whenever you have headphones. And it seems like some people did better than they thought they would. Some people didn't do so well. So hopefully, if those results did surprise you, hopefully you can take steps to correct for that. So, for example, if your hearing age is way older than your actual age, then start wearing hearing protection, not wearing headphones with music blasting in them, things like that. chapter number 10, this discussion was all about audio quality. And one of the things that I wanted to point out here is that a lot of people were kind of surprised by their scores looking at the discussion, that you may not have been able to detect the difference between these two things. And so whenever I'm talking about, do you care about the music quality when you're using Spotify or YouTube, I found something really kind of interesting about this, because a lot of people would say, yes, I do care about music quality when I listen on YouTube, ... But here's the thing. YouTube, the audio stream on that is usually capped at around 128 kilobytes per second, which was actually kind of the lower quality stream that you would find in this example. So whenever you stream things on YouTube, it's actually not a very good audio stream or audio quality. Usually, and even if you're using Spotify, that's usually considered kind of middle quality. I think if you use Tidal, I think that Tidal has certain, but who uses Tidal? Has certain settings where you can get a really good audio quality. But really what I'm talking about here is things like, for example, if you're listening to a CD or listening to something on Spotify versus listening to something on a vinyl record. You know how like hipsters and audiophiles really love vinyl? It's because it has the best audio quality. But the thing is, people actually can't really tell the difference between YouTube and Spotify or Spotify and vinyl. And so the question is whether or not you want to spend all that money on those things. And so this was, like for example, and I think I mentioned this earlier about like the really expensive headphones like Beats by Dre that purport to be of supreme audio quality. Most people can't actually really tell the difference between those things. And then chapter number 11, this one seemed like people were really interested in, especially the first part where you tested your own lip reading. And the interesting thing about lip reading, actually, in a semester previous, I had a student who took this and she was actually deaf. And she did really, really well on this activity, which is kind of interesting because, and she wasn't born without the ability to hear, but it was something that kind of developed throughout her life. But lip reading is a skill. It is something that you can pick up and train yourself to be better at with experience. The kind of interesting thing here is that, if you're thinking about the McGurk effect, the McGurk effect is all about, and one of the exam questions kind of references that children are not good at McGurk. They don't perceive the McGurk effect. Adults do perceive the McGurk effect. And the reason why that happens doesn't really have anything to do with like brain development at all. So it's not differences in brains, it's just differences in our experience. And so people who maybe of hard hearing, like myself, are pretty good at lip reading because we have to do that a lot throughout our daily lives. And then these movies that I recorded and uploaded here, took the sound out, and you've probably seen some. Oh, actually, I was going to say you've probably seen some of these movies, but based on the discussions, it seems like a lot of people haven't seen those movies. The first one was a movie called Moonlight. It was the Best Picture winner of 2016. It's a great movie. And the second one was Manchester by the Sea, which is kind of a New England, very sad, depressing movie. Also very good if you're interested in those things. All right, so let's look at week number 5. Week number 5 is a complete change of pace from what we've looked at previously. Now we are moving outside of the realm of hearing, and the next 4 chapters distributed across 2 weeks are all going to be about the other senses. So chapter 12 is about vestibulation. What the hell is vestibulation, you might ask? It's basically how we sense ourselves. But what does that mean? Basically it means, how do you know that you are sitting right side up versus laying on your back? How do you know if you are upside down versus right side up? How do you know if you are moving versus not moving? That is vestibulation. So the discussion that you're going to have here, basically you're going to watch a found footage movie, in this case the Blair Witch Project, and you're going to answer a couple of questions about these. The reason why I brought this up is because a lot of these movies, these types of movies, seem to make people sick when they see them in the theaters. And I want you to think about why that is. So after you're done reading chapter 12 and looking at the notes, then I want you to try to do your best to answer exactly why that might happen. Then chapter 13 is all about touch, and so this one is going to be a little bit different, alright, let me back up. This is going to be an activity that for a half hour, I want you to just go blindfolded and just live your day blindfolded. And there's no way for me to verify this, right? There's no way for me to make sure that you actually did this. But what I will say is that the people who have done this, who have blindfolded themselves and made sure they can't see a single thing, and then try to just live their normal lives, usually find this to be a very interesting and very rewarding kind of exercise. Because even if you think you can imagine what it's like to not have sight, it's really a different thing completely to try to put together a sandwich, or to try to eat dinner, or to try to take a shower whenever you are completely without vision. So just go ahead and you got an hour or so of free time. The kids are in bed, or you haven't gone to work yet. Just take 30 minutes to try this, try it out, see what you think, and then just write a little bit about it. So you'll respond to those two things. That's all for this week, just those 2 chapters. So make sure that you knock those things out. I do have week 6, those materials. I'm still getting ready. I'm fine-tuning them. They should be uploaded soon. So that way, again, if you want to, you can knock out these 4 chapters early and get that stuff done. I will point out the research article, which is going to be due before the final exam. This research article is a little tricky. So I noticed a lot of people did really well on Research Article 2. For Research Article 3, people did really well again on this. Research Article 4 is a little bit different because we're not looking at brain activation at all. Instead, we're just looking at behavior. And so there are kind of multiple parts to this study. And so I would definitely recommend reading it first, maybe with these questions in mind, and then answering them. So I know sometimes people will kind of answer these as they go along, but some of these are not going to be written completely plain and clearly. So for example, why did the authors use wine in the study? Why not soda or steak or sausages or juice? They are not going to explicitly tell you, but if you kind of keep track of what kinds of questions they're answering, it'll become clear, especially as you read chapters 14 and 15. So if you have any questions about that particular article, please let me know. And this is one of my favorite articles. I was going to say favorite articles this semester, but I think it's just one of my favorite articles to read. I think it's a really fascinating study. That's about smell and about taste and about wine expertise. So let me know if you have any questions about that. Again, you can submit it as early as you want to. And I think that's pretty much it. So if you have any questions about anything in the class, let me know. Otherwise, I will see you later.